This show is a Hopful Media podcast production. Hello everyone, welcome to another History of Persia supporters bonus episode about Frank Miller. Again. Today I'm talking about Xerxes, the Fall of the House of Darius, and the Rise of Alexander the Great, a 2018 graphic novel by Frank Miller and the sequel to his original 1998 graphic novel 300. Which, as you probably know, was the novel adapted into the Zack Snyder film by the same name. You might be surprised to learn that I actually don't mind Xerxes, which is extra surprising given that it is nominally the source material for 2014's 300 Rise of an Empire, which I absolutely detest. But notice that, in this case, the film predates its novel by 4 years. Rise of an Empire was basically adapting Miller's notes and decided to double down on all the weird Western chauvinist anti-Persian themes of the original. Miller's Xerxes, on the other hand, actually demonstrates some growth. My biggest critique is really that it reads a bit like Miller strapped a bunch of short stories together with the 300 brand rather than a single consistent plot, which we'll get into more as I go through that plot. Planning a trip this year? Imagine how much richer your travel experience could be if you could speak the local language. With Rosetta Stone, you'll gain the confidence to have real conversations and create deeper connections wherever you'll go. Rosetta Stone is the trusted leader in language learning for over 30 years. Their immersive intuitive method helps you naturally absorb and retain your new language, on desktop or mobile, whenever and wherever it fits your summer schedule. I don't have travel plans this summer, but the season has me in the mood for preparing. I've been to Mexico several times, and still mostly just know no habla. So I want to brush up for next time with bite-sized lessons. With 25 languages from Spanish to Persian to French and Japanese, that's a lot of you can learn faster and retain longer from. Rosetta Stone immerses you in your new language naturally, helping you think and communicate with confidence using an intuitive learning process without English translation. The built-in true accent speech recognition technology provides real-time feedback, helping you sound more natural. And you can do this anytime, anywhere, with lessons from your desktop or mobile app. Don't wait. Unlock your language learning potential now. History of Persia listeners can grab Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. That's unlimited access to 25 language courses for life. Visit rosettastone.com/today to get started and claim your 50% off today. Don't miss out. Go to rosettastone.com/today and start learning today. The fourth issue marks a major time skip and really highlights the fact that Xerxes, the graphic novel, is just 3 stories set in the ancient world glued together. You've got Marathon, then a prequel to 300 and the story of Xerxes in the years just before 300, with the adaptation of Esther. Then it's suddenly 336 BC and the great king is Darius III, once again a totally normal-looking Persian guy. The whole issue is just kind of exposition for the characters of Darius and Alexander the Great, followed by a comic panel montage of Alexander's early conquests, culminating at the Battle of Issus. Darius flees, his family is taken hostage, and their lives are spared. There's really no disruptive inaccuracies to point out. It's basically just the first wave of Alexander's campaign in the artistic style of 300, no more, no less. The only things I need to acknowledge are first, that the novel presents Darius III as the height of Persian power and grandeur. This does make Alexander's conquest seem more impressive, which is really not an arena that Alex needed help in. But the other thing I'd like to note is that it doesn't overly valorize Alex either. He is presented as a violent and destructive invader that throws Persia into chaos while championing the cause of Greece and being beloved by his followers. That is fundamentally accurate, if not where I personally put the focus while telling the same story. This book really flips back and forth between mostly fine and unneeded inaccuracy. So it shouldn't surprise you to hear that the fifth and final issue is less well done than the fourth. It opens with Darius furious that his family was taken captive and confronting Alexander on the plains of Gaugamela. The battle itself plays out in mostly accordance with history, but then it takes a turn that I really just don't understand. Darius still flees the field, but rather than Ecbatana, he goes to Babylon, while Alexander and co. head straight to Susa and Persepolis. As with history, the sack of Persepolis is violent and destroys the city, but in the comic they also destroy Susa before looping back around to Babylon, where Darius is, as historically, murdered by Bessus. Bessus is immediately captured, and Alexander oversees the funeral of Darius, which is both historical and out of order. The story ends with Alexander acknowledging the deceased Persian king as a worthy opponent and contemplating his plans to conquer the rest of the world. Nothing in this last issue is egregious on the same scale as killing Darius at Marathon or turning Xerxes into a magic god-man. I just don't understand why Miller bothered making some of these changes. I guess they sort of condensed the story by cutting out the events in Media and Parthia, and you get to show off Babylon without having to take a break from the action. But I just don't know. Alexander's occupation of Babylon, Darius's flight to and from Ecbatana, and the skirmish at the Caspian Gates would have added, what, a page, maybe 2 or 3? I definitely get the storytelling decision to speed up Bessus's demise because the stuff in Central Asia is hard to portray even in historical terms, but I guess it just feels like changes for the sake of change to me. The one thing I will applaud Miller for here is actually having Alexander destroy Susa as well as Persepolis. Given the truncated nature of this version, raising an extra city compensates for all the destruction in central Iran, Tyre, and the Ionian coast that don't have time to feature directly on the page. It keeps some emphasis on Alexander as a destroyer, even though you still have to face the fact that he is kind of the protagonist of ancient history after Darius's death. It strikes a satisfying enough balance to me, at least.
Hey, History of Persia fans. Before Persia, another civilization controlled the Middle East, the very first civilization, the inventors of writing itself. From the clay tablets of ancient Mesopotamia come the oldest stories. The history and myth of the first Mesopotamians is the subject of the Oldest Stories podcast online at oldeststories.net. If you like ancient history, come check out the Oldest Stories after you listen to this episode.
The history of Persia is intertwined with conquest. It began with conquest when Cyrus, king of a small city called Anshan, set out to build the greatest empire the world had ever seen. In a series of stunning campaigns, he achieved just that, becoming one of the greatest conquerors in history, and basically started Persian history. After all, you don't get the title the Great for nothing. But he wouldn't be the last great Persian conqueror. Other Persian rulers like Darius the Great, Mithridates I, and Ardashir I would go on to become great conquerors on their own, establishing their own great empires and legacies. If you want to hear their story, and the stories of other great conquerors, many of whom are far less famous despite their great achievements, join me, Ramzi Shalah, on my podcast, The Conquerors Podcast, available on all platforms you listen through.